welcome back to Washington Commanders Insider. Today we are doing a rookie minicamp update. We're going to be talking about the key storylines out of day 2 for the Washington Commanders minicamp here. And we're going to be talking about why we should be excited as fans for this upcoming season. And so before we jump into it, I first want to remind you to hit that subscribe button, just like Jaden Daniels is going to be hitting Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, and hopefully Jalen Lane for lots of touchdowns this upcoming season. And so in exchange for hitting that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Washington Commanders. And so make sure you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Washington Commanders Insider family as we talk nothing but Washington Commanders football. So with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it as we're talking about the big time storylines here out of this rookie minicamp. And so let's start with the fact that the Washington Commanders have now signed all their day 3 picks here. And so Jalen Lane, you got Kane, Madrano, and then also Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt have all been signed to rookie deals. And so before we jump into what Lance Newmark had to say about each of these players, this is huge for the Washington Commanders and especially these rookies, because when you're coming in as a rookie in the National Football League, you're trying to get up to speed as quick as possible, and you certainly don't want to miss any time on the field. And so by going ahead and signing these players early, this ensures that they're going to be into training camp and ready to go, because you don't want to have, something where somebody's unsigned and then they're missing time there at training camp. And so a big first step for all 3 of these players. And I must say that I like the first step for these players in their NFL career. And so let's go ahead and jump briefly into what Lance Newmark had to say. Once again, I'm going to be paraphrasing this. And so if you want to go check out this article, it is on commanders.com, where you can check that out. It's a great read there. You get a chance to see what Lance Newmark had to say about each player. But again, just paraphrasing that. And so let's go ahead and let's start with, what was said here about Jalen Lane. Talk about just the fact that they had a vision for him, or they have a vision for him, and talked about how he was the highest player on the board at the time and how it was stressful there, hoping that they were going to get him. And again, just paraphrasing that, but they finally got, the pick in and they got him. And so super excited to see him here. Next up with Kane Madrano, one of the things that he says here is that you could tell that he's a really good athlete. He talks about the fact of just how well he tested in the NFL Combine, and talks about really how fluid of an athlete he is. Again, just paraphrasing that, but you just get an idea of just what wowed the Commanders in going out and drafting Kane Madrano. And so that's good. Talked about him being just a unique a pass defender. And so that's going to be huge. And so next talks about Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, and just talks about what a cool personality, talked about the great energy, and just talked about his road and how unique it was to get to this point. And so that is really some of the things that Lance Newmark has to say. And so once again, go check that article out on commanders.com, and you can read the exact quotes here. But again, that's huge. Just lets you know, man, that the Washington Commanders really believe in these players. And I do think that each one of these players really have a chance to be an impact, because we've talked about this before, especially with Jalen Lane. Like, I definitely expect for him to really get some offensive snaps early and often, because I think that there's so many ways that you can use him. And then with Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, I really anticipate that he has a real chance to certainly get some snaps in the backfield, because, man, we'll be talking a little bit more, but he looked pretty good. Again, we're going to look at another article here on commanders.com, but if you go in there, you can see the clips, man, just showing him going over some, cones and stuff like that. He looked great in his drills. And so, again, you don't see too much here in this rookie minicamp, because, again, just to let you know, this is a 3-day minicamp. You're not going to see, pads, and they're not going 11 on 11 or anything like that. It's very skill driven classroom stuff. It's really onboarding, which is what Dan Quinn talks about. And so we'll talk about what he said too. But again, it's just great to see that the Commanders have taken care of business with 3 rookies that I think are certainly going to be impactful for us. And so next, I want to talk about really just, I think, the biggest storyline here for the Washington Commanders in this rookie minicamp, and that is Gabe Taylor. And so this is an excellent read. Again, go to commanders.com if you want to see exactly, what Gabe Taylor had to say. And man, I hope that he makes the team. I just can't say that enough. Like I said, his brother is certainly one of my favorite players of all time, have his rookie card and everything. And so I just love the passion when you hear him talk about just fighting to make this team, and just, really talking about, again, paraphrasing, how he's been watching Washington all his life and he could have gone anywhere else. But he wants to, put it on again and continue moving forward with this team. And so, look, you can just tell the passion is there. And this is a guy that I think he wants to prove himself. He did talk about, just being able to go out there and, challenge what the critics might be saying about his game. And so, look, I like it. Like I said before, he's a ball hawking type of safety. He's got tons of speed. He definitely showed flashes of causing turnovers and things like that. If you can do that at any level in football, you're certainly going to be a player that can be an impact on any team. And so I'm rooting for him. And so it's just good to see that he's got such energy and passion here. So I'm rooting for him. And so that's one of the biggest storylines there. And so next, I want to talk a little bit more about just some of the clips that we saw with these players and things like that. Because again, you go to commanders.com and you can see like some actual clips there of what they're doing. But starting with Josh Conley Jr., like I think that you just get a chance to see how quick he is. And I think also too, just watching his hand action as far as going up and hitting pads and things like that looks very good. Again, you're going against the pads and stuff like that. You're not going against the actual player, but still looked very good and pretty fluent. And then next up too, with Trey Amos, I thought that Trey Amos looked very good. One of the clips that I saw, I think one of the coaches was saying, he just keeps getting better, but man, he's just flying all over the place there. So you could definitely see the speed. You see the length there. He looked very good. And then also too, with Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, I just mentioned that, man, he looked very good with his footwork and stuff like that, kind of going over some pads and things like that. And again, just the limited clips that I got a chance to see, I liked it. And then also too, lastly, with Kane Madrano, like he definitely looks fluid. And certainly I've talked about this before with him. I think he's going to be a player that honestly, man, I think I could see him getting some situational snaps early on in his career just because of how fluent he looks, man. He could be a hybrid and again, got great hands and things like that. And so he could be definitely a turnover machine in the pass game for us if we sub him in there. So hopefully he definitely develops to that. And so next I wanted to talk a little bit more, just shifting focus here and look at what Dan Quinn had to say, because Dan Quinn always gives us some great quotes, definitely pumps you up here. But, one of the things that Dan Quinn really talked about here, again, paraphrasing this, you can find this interview. It's about 14 minutes long. He talks about a whole bunch of stuff. But one of the things he talks about is just that it's all about the skills here. And he wants the rookies to focus on the skills and really the basics. And, this is just an onboarding process with this mini camp. And, just talking about how players really have to focus on these skills and not worry about the bigger picture of the 53-man roster, the practice squad and stuff like that. He was like, those things really take care of themselves. But what you have to do is you got to go out there and you got to execute the skills and really just learning the standards of what it is to be a Washington Commander, so to speak. And so that was good to see, talking about how it's all about the development here and the details, which is what we have seen really with this franchise, since we've got the new management and everything. It is all about the details. We see that in the season before, and I think we're going to see that some more in this upcoming season. And next, he talks about the work ethic and the unseen type of stuff. And that's really what I think makes this team special and why they were able to take it to the next step is just the fact that guys are putting in so much work out there that you don't see. And I think it's just been a different type of mentality with this team. And so it's good to see that our rookies and, the players that are trying out for this team are getting a taste of this early. You're setting that type of expectation for these players, and they're kind of coming in and they're taking it and they're running with stride. And so, one of the things that Dan Quinn does talk about with a player that we've said here on the channel that I certainly think is going to be a huge impact for the Commanders, and that's Trey Amos. He talks about Trey Amos and he talks about him definitely playing outside. Is the vision there? He also talked about his length and how that versatility is going to play a factor here, which is something that I've been talking about with Trey Amos, because you need to get a corner like him into the building, especially when you're going against some elite wide receivers in your division. And so cannot wait to see him. And then also to Marshawn Lattimore, when he's back healthy this season, knows the plays and everything else, along with Mikey Samra, who we know is a baller. I've said this before. Look, I'm not trying to say that he's going to be like the Hall of Famer Darrell Green and Chris Dishman, who was a terrific cornerback, but this is the first time that we have a legit pair of corners back here that can really be shut down corners. And so I'm so excited to see it. And again, just go check out the clips. He looked terrific out there. Next, he talks about Gabe a little bit. So talking about Gabe Taylor and just really all the other players that are trying out. But he did say that, look, it looks like it's a good start for everybody out there. And so that was good to see. He talks about the excitement that's going on around the fan base with the stadium, and then also to the NFL draft coming to the city, and just talking about how, that really puts a little bit more pressure on them to go out there and work hard for the city, and also too for the fans. So you love to hear that. And then he talks about, just the NFL schedule, which is coming up, which we will talk about that soon. And talking about the fact that the Washington Commanders might have to go, I believe, over to Spain and maybe play a game. We'll see what the details are. But he made a funny reference, though. I think he said something there in Spanish, and it was funny to see. So anyway, check that interview out with Dan Quinn. And Dan Quinn just giving us nothing but just straight up knowledge bombs. And then also, too, man, just giving us some good stuff about the Washington Commanders. I love the quote that he said, too, here, where he says that not every player becomes a great player, but you can become a great teammate. So certainly one of those slogans that Dan Quinn probably has in the building somewhere. But anyhow, some good stuff here coming from the rookie minicamp. This is day 2. We got day 3, and that wraps it up here. And then, again, it's just right around the corner. This is why we're super excited for this. Our rookies seem to be off to a good start. Just looking forward to seeing what stories we hear out of this. And so let me know what your key takeaways are. Was it the fact that the Washington Commanders have already signed day 3 picks? Was that the biggest key takeaway for you? Is another key takeaway here what Gabe Taylor had to say about the passion and just how he's been watching this franchise? I definitely get pumped up about that. And also, too, is it the first round picks here? Like I said, talking about Josh Conley Jr., he looked very good in his drills. Again, like a grain of salt here. They're not going against actual players, but, man, they look pretty good early. And then Trey Amos, man, getting excited about what Dan Quinn had to say. And one last note, too, just personally, I want to say this about Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. For me, you're seeing him in his Auburn jersey, but he's going to be wearing number 32. And that reminds me of one of my favorite running backs from back in the day. And that was Ricky Irvin. And so Ricky Irvin is the last player that I remember personally that wore 32 that was just of significance for this franchise. And by the way, he actually helped us win our last Super Bowl against the Buffalo Bills. So Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, no pressure wearing number 32. That's all I'm saying, man. So anyway, let me know in the comments here what you guys are saying. And as we always say, look, go Commanders, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, man. Peace.